My husband betrayed me with my sister right after I discovered I was pregnant. How do I move forward? When I married Henry 5 years ago, I thought I had found my life partner. I was 35 then, a successful doctor working at a prestigious university hospital. Henry, 37, shared my profession, my passion for medicine, and my drive for excellence. We understood the emotional toll of long hours and the stress of our jobs, yet we built a life together. One that, while not always picture perfect, felt solid and full of promise. 2 months ago, something extraordinary happened. I found out I was pregnant. For years, Henry and I had tried to start a family, but our efforts were met with disappointment. Eventually, we made peace with the idea that children might not be in our future. When I took that test on a whim after experiencing morning sickness, I couldn't believe my eyes when it came back positive. Excitement and disbelief washed over me as I realized that life had finally given us what we had once desperately hoped for. Henry was away at a medical conference when I found out. I decided to wait to tell him in person. This news was too significant for a phone call. I imagined his face lighting up as I shared the news, the start of a new chapter in our lives together. I planned every detail for the day of his return, even booking a table at our favorite restaurant. When I picked him up from the airport, something felt off. Henry was distracted, distant even. He barely acknowledged me with a nod, let alone the warm embrace I'd expected after his time away. I brushed it off, thinking he was tired from his trip. But when I mentioned our lunch plans, he sighed irritably and suggested we cancel. His unusual brusqueness stung, but I pushed forward, insisting we at least grab a quick meal before heading home. At the restaurant, Henry was still detached. He barely spoke, giving one-word answers to my attempts at conversation. It wasn't like him. Normally, he'd regale me with stories about the conference, the people he'd met, and the innovative ideas discussed. That day, it was like he wasn't there with me at all. Despite his behavior, I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to share the news about the baby, hoping it would bring us closer again. Just as I summoned the courage to tell him, he looked up from his plate and said something that shattered my world. "I've been unfaithful to you," he said in a calm, emotionless tone. At first, I thought I'd misheard him. "What?" I asked, laughing nervously. He met my eyes for the first time that day and repeated, "I've been having an affair with Emma, your sister." The world around me seemed to stop. My sister, my husband, together. The betrayal cut deeper than I could comprehend. I stared at him, searching for some sign of regret, an apology, anything. But his face was cold, detached, as if he were simply stating a fact. "How long?" I asked, my voice shaking. He explained, almost casually, that their affair had started months ago after Emma broke up with her boyfriend. I had invited her into our home to support her during her heartbreak, never imagining she and Henry would betray me in the worst way possible. I couldn't listen to any more. The details of their deceit blurred as I stood abruptly, grabbed my keys, and walked out of the restaurant. Henry called after me, but I didn't care. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who had destroyed my trust and my family in one selfish act. When I got home, I locked myself in our bedroom and sobbed until I had no tears left. At some point, Henry came back and knocked on the door, pleading to talk, but I couldn't face him. I eventually fell asleep, only to wake up in the middle of the night, my stomach growling. When I went downstairs, I saw Henry asleep on the couch, his phone lying next to him. Anger surged through me as I stared at his peaceful face. How could he sleep so soundly after what he'd done? Without thinking, I picked up his phone and unlocked it. He hadn't even bothered to change his passcode. What I found confirmed every fear I had. Texts and photos between Henry and Emma, plans for secret meetups, jokes at my expense, and even messages where Emma admitted the thrill of their betrayal made their relationship more exciting. I snapped photos of the messages as evidence, my hands trembling. Then, I packed a bag and left for my parents' house. When I arrived, I told them everything. They were furious, not just with Henry, but also with Emma. They cut her off immediately, saying they could never forgive her for what she'd done. The days that followed were a blur of heartbreak and legal preparations. Henry tried to contact me, sometimes apologizing, other times blaming me for the affair. He claimed I was too focused on work and neglected him. His audacity was infuriating. He had known who I was before we married. My career had always been demanding, but I had never wavered in my love and support for him. The final straw came when Henry showed up at my parents' house, trying to convince me to reconcile for the sake of our child. He spoke about sacrifice and family values, completely ignoring the fact that he had wished for me to miscarry when he first found out about the pregnancy. My father, who had been a quiet observer until then, stepped in and threw Henry out, warning him never to return. The divorce was finalized quickly. Henry didn't contest it, likely due to the overwhelming evidence against him. His parents, horrified by his actions, supported me throughout the process. They even set up a trust fund for my baby and helped cover my medical expenses. Emma, meanwhile, tried to apologize through emails and mutual friends, but I refused to let her back into my life. She forfeited that right the moment she betrayed me. Months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She became the light in my darkest times, a reminder that even in the midst of betrayal, life can offer something precious. Henry's parents continued to be involved, doting on their grandchild and ensuring she would never need anything from her father. Henry, on the other hand, faded from our lives, too ashamed or perhaps too selfish to be a real parent. As I sit here today, watching my daughter play, I realize how far I've come. The betrayal still stings, but it no longer defines me. I'm a mother, a doctor, and a woman who rebuilt her life from the ashes of a broken marriage. My sister and my husband may have tried to destroy me, but they failed. My daughter and I are proof that even after the deepest pain, there is hope.